All right, today we're digging into a story that's been deliberately buried, really for centuries. We're talking about the rich, complex, and, well, often hidden history of the African continent.
And let's kick things off with this quote right here. Now, what's truly, truly shocking about it isn't just what it says, it's who said it and when.
I mean, look, this wasn't some dusty relic from a forgotten century. These words were actually spoken by a man named Hugh Trevor Roper, a celebrated history professor at Oxford University. And get this, it was in 1963. This wasn't some fringe opinion, you guys. This was a totally mainstream academic viewpoint at the time. So that whole idea of a dark continent, it got deeply, deeply embedded in how the world thought. But it begs a really crucial question, doesn't it? Was the darkness a lack of history, or was it a flat-out refusal to even see it? To really get what happened here, we need a key term. It's called epistemicide. It's a heavy word, but what it means is pretty straightforward: the systematic destruction of an entire people's knowledge base. You see, this isn't just about losing history by accident, it's about having it actively taken from you. And look, that Oxford historian, Trevor Roper, he was not alone in thinking this. Not by a long shot. This idea has really deep roots in Western philosophy. I mean, you have George Hegel, a super influential 19th century philosopher, who basically said Africa is no historical part of the world. So this wasn't new. It was a long-held, almost foundational belief for many. So all these big ideas from big thinkers really cemented the myth. But if this history actually does exist, where's the proof? Where's the evidence to shut this myth down? Well, let's take a look. Okay, let's start with a number: 700,000. Just let that sink in. 700,000. That's the estimated number of ancient manuscripts that exist right now in and around the city of Timbuktu in Mali. And we're not talking about just a few old books here. This number, it represents an absolutely incredible intellectual heritage. In the Ahmed Baba Institute alone, there are over 400,000 of these manuscripts. And it's estimated there are another 300,000 hidden away in private family collections. These texts go all the way back to the city's golden age in the 1300s. And the subjects? Everything. Astronomy, law, poetry, history, religion. They even had translations of Greek philosophers like Plato and Aristotle. Timbuktu was a global center of high learning, period. And here's what's so incredible. This knowledge wasn't just forgotten. It survived against all odds. There were repeated, violent attempts to literally erase it. You had the Moroccan invasion in 1591 that scattered its scholars. Then French colonial rulers burned books, forcing families to hide their collections for generations. And as recently as 2012, when jihadists occupied Timbuktu and burned the library, people secretly smuggled 95% of those manuscripts to safety. It is an unbelievable story of resilience. But, Africa's hidden history wasn't just written on paper. It was literally built into the earth itself. So let's shift gears from these amazing libraries to some absolute marvels of engineering. Okay, so everyone's heard of the Great Wall of China, right? Well, in what is now Nigeria, the Kingdom of Benin built something even bigger. The Great Walls of Benin weren't just one wall. They were a massive network of walls and moats. And their total length? An estimated 16,000 kilometers. To put that in perspective, that is 4 times longer than the Great Wall of China was at that point in history. 4 times. And these walls, they enclosed a staggering 6,500 square kilometers of land. This wasn't just to protect one city. It was a whole system designed to safeguard countless villages and communities in the area. The scale is just mind-boggling. And you have to understand, this was an absolute marvel of pre-industrial engineering. Construction started way back, as early as 800 AD, and it was all done by hand. No modern equipment. The technique itself was genius. They dig this massive inner moat and then use the earth they dug out to build up the outer wall, or rampart. Some of these walls reached up to 20 meters high. That's 66 feet. It was this incredible defensive system with 9 guarded gates that controlled every single person coming in or out. Okay, so this brings us right back to that big question. With evidence this massive, we're talking hundreds of thousands of books and thousands of kilometers of walls. How on earth did the myth of a dark continent with no history stick around for so long? Well, because the history was actively suppressed. Let me give you a perfect example. The golden rhinoceros of Mapungubwe. This beautiful, intricate artifact from the 13th century was proof of a sophisticated, wealthy African kingdom. But when it was discovered in 1932, South Africa's apartheid government literally kept it hidden for decades. Why? Because it completely contradicted the racist ideology. It was inconvenient proof.
So, as you can imagine, the fight to reclaim this narrative has been a long and difficult one. It goes all the way back to 1909, when W.E.B. Du Bois first had this vision for an Encyclopedia Africana. Then you have UNESCO launching its own huge history series in the 60s to combat this ignorance. And the work continues today, with projects like the Africa Factsbook, which has support from the African Union. And Du Bois himself, he just said it perfectly. He said, "I want the proposed encyclopedia to be written mainly from the African point of view by people who know and understand the history and culture of Africans." The goal was never just about listing facts. It was about reclaiming the very act of storytelling.
So what's been the biggest roadblock? Honestly, it's always been about funding. The challenge has never been a lack of smart people. There is abundant intellectual capital. So many brilliant African scholars and historians ready to do this work. But these huge, vital projects have been constantly held back by a simple lack of financial support.
You know, this whole situation reminds me of a powerful African proverb that just perfectly sums up this entire struggle. Until the story of the hunt is told by the lion, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. It's such a profound reminder that who tells the story, well, it changes everything. So, what's the big takeaway here? Let's boil it down. First, that whole dark continent idea, it was a myth, a complete fabrication. Second, there were vast intellectual and engineering achievements in Africa long before Europeans ever arrived. Third, and this is so important, this history wasn't just lost, it was actively suppressed and ignored. And finally, the fight to control this historical narrative, it is absolutely still going on today.
And all of this leaves us with one last, really crucial question to chew on. If a history this huge, this monumental, could be hidden from us in plain sight, it just makes you wonder, doesn't it? Whose stories aren't we hearing today?